Shane Bruce, Resto Mod Daisy, and today we're going to talk about the fabulous, the mighty mainspring compressor. And today, unlike a lot of other times we've talked about this tool, we're going to show you how to make one. Matter of fact, we're going to show you how to make a couple of different ones. This is the baseline design that I've used for years. It is a wooden handle. It has two metal probes that are manufactured out of stick welding rods. That's what I use to make them because I have an abundance of stick welding rods. The critical dimensions on your mainspring compressor is a handle of some description. The probes, if you'll notice, need to be put in holes that are about 0.60 inches apart from each other. Now, oddly enough, 0.60 inches is 5/8 if you're an imperial kind of fella. And if you're a metric fiend, that turns from 0.60 inches into 15.24 millimeters, as you can see there. But the bottom line is 0.60, 5/8 of an inch in distance between your probes. Now, why is this? Well, that's because these probes have to clear the back end of a plunger assembly. And the plunger assembly is, counting the little spurs you see, about 0.60, 5/8 of an inch. All right, and there are three different kinds of plunger assemblies you might encounter in Daisyland. This is the pre-78 90-degree plunger. You'll notice it has two brads on each side of the plunger assembly, and the plate itself runs at a 90-degree angle, nice and straight. This is a variant on that one design that has built-in legs so that the plunger assembly can't dive down during the arming stroke. You'll also notice that instead of two separate brad points, it has one large brad point. And this is the post-78 plastic trigger gun plunger assembly. You'll notice that the back plate is at an angle. It has the two legs to keep the plunger from diving during the cocking stroke, and one large brad. So your plunger assembly, your mainspring compressor has got to be wide enough so that it clears all of that on its way to make contact with the mainspring. So that's why it's important it has to be 0.06 inches, 5/8 of an inch in diameter. Now, on this type of tool, you'll notice that the probes themselves, over use and over time, have bent slightly left, slightly right. It can be erratic. This tool, this plunger assembly is still the same. It's got to be 60. So in order to get the tool in place, you have to have it wide enough to get past the brads on the back plate. And for the current iteration, the same holds true. Now, like I said, I've used this style of mainspring compressor for a long time because it's easy to make. I've got plenty of materials to make them with. Now, to manufacture one of these, what I do is get a piece of wood big enough for a handle. Then I'll mark my wood where my drill holes need to be with a caliper or a pencil or a pen. And you just make a couple of marks in the wood, and that way, you probably can't see that very well, but there are two little pin pricks there. Once you get those marks set, get yourself a 1/8 inch drill and drill it far down as the drill will go. It'll probably go about 2 1/4 inches. Pull it out, make the second hole, do the same thing. Now, prepping the drill rod or the tack welding rod. This is a 1/8 inch diameter steel rod with a composite coating on it. You just take a hammer and beat that off. It's messy, so I'm not going to do it here today, but it taps right off, and when you get done with that, you can clean it up either with some sandpaper or a wire wheel if you've got that. Then you'll have two lengthy metal probes that you will hammer into your wooden grip like so, and you'll notice that they're quite a bit longer than what I normally use. So at that juncture in time, once you've got them mounted and you like the length you've gotten, you can cut them off or you can leave them long. Either way, but the longer they are, the more wobble they'll get. So it's probably smart to go ahead and get them installed and cut them down to a usable length of about 6 to 7 inches. 7.5 inches, 6 inches, whatever you feel comfortable with. Now, the reason you got to pay attention to the distance is that the receivers that your plunger assemblies and your mainsprings are mounted in are all folded metal products. And over time, they will acquire a sharp edge. So you need a probe that's long enough to be able to reach in there, get past the back plate of the plunger and still give you some depth room so that you can make your squeeze without cutting yourself to pieces on these ridges. And that will happen. I got one today, as a matter of fact, from playing around getting ready for this video. So you want enough length to be able to safely compress the mainspring. Now, let's take a look here at the cutaway, and we'll show you why distance is kind of important. On the cutaway, we have it's currently set up as a standard spring block gun. There's our spring block, there's our mainspring, there's our plunger assembly. We take our tool, we slide it inside, we go past or underneath our little tabs, we make contact with the mainspring, and we compress it. Now, pay attention back here at the back. When we've got the mainspring compressed at a working distance where we can pull the spring plunger, we are still a fair amount of away from the back of the receiver, so we're not going to risk cutting ourselves on it. All right, so that's the reason you need the length. So that's the traditional tool. Now, because I get so many questions, especially of late, about how to build these things, I decided it, probably would be smart to try some other techniques that have been used to make mainspring compressors. I've never done it before. So I trotted off to the local big box store and picked up some electrical conduit, which I had read could be used for this purpose. Cut a couple of slots in it, just basically zipped them with a bandsaw. And this little rascal did work about twice before the metal tabs, because they're a little on the flimsy side, decided to start sliding up past the spring. So not enough bite to be reliable. So it worked once or twice. It didn't work all that well. And you can see how it's spreading out there. So this is a cheap solution, but like most cheap solutions, it doesn't seem like it's going to work that well for very long. So wouldn't recommend that. You could try it yourself. Maybe you'll get better results. Here was the other solution that I'd seen. I read an account on one of the boards about a fella had found some folding file hangers, and they were just the right size to do the job we're looking to do. Well, I didn't have any folding file hangers, but I had been down to the local big box store of late and picked up one of these. It's a 1/2 inch wide, 1/8 inch thick steel strap, 36 inches. It's always convenient. It's always good to have raw material on hand. And I felt this stuff was actually thick enough to be able to get enough bite on the mainspring so it wouldn't flex too bad. Well, it's actually working out. It's been tweaked quite a bit, as you can see. I've gone ahead and put a bevel cut on both sides. You don't want to take it down to a bevel where you can slice yourself, but you're going to have to bevel it to get it to work. And the idea, pretty much just like the original tool, is it slides in, clears the brad, makes it into the receiver, grabs the spring, and compresses it. And it does do that. Now I'm still tweaking this unit. It's a little bit thick on the business end, so it's hard to get out, but it will compress a mainspring. The other reason I was looking into building one of these like this is I've always done this kind of work in a vise. I've never done it freehand on a bench. But a lot of people don't have vices, and I've heard from them about what can I do without a vise. Well, with a tool like this, it's nice and rigid and pretty sturdy. You can slip it in the back of the receiver, make it past the back end of the plunger assembly until you feel yourself on the spring. Then you can invert the tool, and one-handed you can push down on the tool, and then you can remove your spring block with the other. Works out really well. Installation, reverse of the deinstallation, and there you are. You don't really need a vise if you've got something like this that can be stout enough to press down on. It probably would work with one of these. I've never tried it because it's always been a real wiggle job to get it on the bearing point in the vise. And I don't know, it probably would work. Yeah, well, it kind of does. Yep, that'll work as well. It just doesn't seem to be as secure as this particular type. And once I get this one tweaked up, that's probably going to be my go-to tool, because it is quite a bit stiffer than the super cheap and easy to make original mainspring compressors. So that's what we've got today, kids. You got 3 choices of mainspring compressors. One we don't recommend. If you could get some thicker pipe, might work. The old original, tried and true, and I still have tons of stick welding rods, so these will probably continue to be made here. And the new version with the 1/2 inch steel strap, which I kind of like. That's all we've got for you today, kids. This is Shane Bruce with Rest on My Daisy, signing off.